But yeah, you want to give someone something that they will be captivated by visually, and then maybe look into it a little bit more and start to kind of inhabit it themselves, imagine what it would be like to be there. Because that's what I always loved about, sci-fi book covers or whatever. What would it be like for me to go into that crazy image? And so that's always the buzz that I would like to give other people. I want them to feel that this isn't an artist's work. This is a doorway that you can look through into a whole different world.
Please welcome concept artist Alex Jay Brady to this episode of the Learn Squared podcast. Alex has a knack for creating vivid worlds and designs through her personal projects, and whilst working on games and films with directors such as Neil Blomkamp and more. So let's jump in and hear more from the creative world of Alex. Let's go. All right, cool. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Learn Squared podcast. I'm delighted to welcome on a very amazing and awesome guest, Alex Jay Brady. Welcome, Alex.
Very nice to be here, and thanks very much.
So excited to have you on. You've been on my ultimate list for a very long time. So, but I've just never really reached out because there's a bunch of artists where just super intimidated to reach out to, mainly because I look up to your work super highly, it's a very high standard. So I'm glad to finally have you on. But before we get into just me basically just nerding out over your work for the next hour or so, if you wouldn't mind just letting everybody know who you are and what you do, please.
Sure. So my name's Alex Jay Brady. Thank you so much for such a lovely introduction. My head is massive now. I'm not going to get out of the room. I've basically been a freelance concept artist for my whole career. I've tried a few studio gigs, but generally my preference is just to work from home in the middle of the night on whatever people are willing to pay me to draw. And sometimes that can be quite fun. Sometimes it's a bit boring, but that's basically how I've been doing it for the last 15 or 20 years. Amazing.
Wow. Does that feel like almost 2 decades? Do you feel the length of that time?
I still feel exactly the same as I did when I started. So it's strange to sort of have this long memory. I tend to sort of block it out most of the time, but then you're like, whoa, that was 2013 when we did that, and that was 2016 and so on. So so the years keep on piling on. It's crazy.
What was your first? Did you get straight into freelance, or did you kind of try studio or freelance? Did you kind of fall into it, or was it a targeted thing?
Yeah, I did university. I did a car design styling degree, and was working freelance at the same time to earn some money. And I just found that I preferred doing the freelance to any of the jobs that I could get after university in studios. I just found that the studio, you seem to spend an awful lot of time kind of on interpersonal politics and not enough time on just drawing stuff. And I found that they were always trying to promote you above doing actual artwork, which I just wasn't super interested in. I had no qualifications as a manager or anyone who can run a team or anything like that. So I just sort of always resisted that promotion, and I found the easiest way of doing that was really just to kind of be a mercenary freelancer and try and survive out in the world that way. I guess I was kind of very arrogant as well, because I wanted to make something under my name. So you can kind of work on big projects, but you'll be one of a big crew. Whereas I kind of arrogantly wanted just to have my own name on it, a bit like Sid Mead or something. Yes, and so that was kind of the route that I took, and with varied success, I would say. Perhaps it would have been more smart to do some studio gigs along the way, but
Do you still feel that way, or are you kind of glad that it's still freelance? Do you still kind of have that pining for maybe is it more what could have been, or would it have been as more like a thought experiment, or do you actually think they should have done it?
What would have? Yeah, I definitely do wonder what would it have been like if I'd tried to play the corporate game and climb the ladder and become a director and so on. But I just think I am not cut out for that. My composition just doesn't work that way. So I think it's probably a what if that could never have really happened. It was always going to be like this one way or the other. You know what I mean?
I like it. That's also, I can definitely relate to a lot of that in terms of, I've only ever worked freelance, but I'm definitely think, I wish I kind of did. I do want to try the studio thing. I think I'll be good at it. But I also respect what you said there about the arrogant side of things as well. Do you still have that?
I think so, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love to. I'm a lot older now, a lot, more kind of practiced, and I think I would actually quite enjoy a kind of more, not a lead role, but a more senior role, at least kind of a part of my work. But yeah, I think ultimately the freedom to do whatever I want is something that I value so highly that whenever I'm in a position where they're like, you have to come in every day at 9 a.m. and stuff, it starts to grate. And if I could find someone that was like, you can come in a couple of days, we do our meetings, but then you go home and do the heavy lifting at home, I think that would be fine. But they always resist that for one reason or another, and that's their prerogative. So can't complain about it.
Fair enough. I remember at uni as well. Like, I also did automotive design, transport design. So we went down a similar kind of route. Which uni did you go to?
Coventry.
Same. When did you go?
I was there 2002 to 2006, I think.
Okay. I started there, I think, 2006.
That's crazy. So the Kiefer Sutherland building.
Yeah. I know,
the Graham Sutherland building. But
I don't know if they had the same art shop there, but they started one of the better art shops that I've ever been to.
I thought it was great. I didn't. There wasn't many in the way of lectures or anything like that. It was much more, here's your design brief, piss off and work on it. But
sick.
Again, that's exactly how I like to work. So I loved the clay modeling phase. That was so much fun.
So was yours like what was your course specifically? Was it more like the clay side? Because we only started doing that in third year onwards.
Transport design, and then I think I fucked it up and ended up just getting a BA instead. Even though I did 4 years because I was partying and stuff. But I thoroughly enjoyed that. And then I went to work at Concept Group in Coventry. I worked there for a while afterwards. Joe Malloy's crew, sadly not with us anymore, Joe. But they used to build a lot of concept cars for Jaguar and Land Rover and people like that. So we were there when they were doing a lot of those. Like the Cadillac CN had just been done when I joined, I think, and other stuff like that. So it was an exciting time. I enjoyed that.
Did you jump into cars like straight away after graduating? Like, or I guess a better question would maybe, what led you to doing that course?
I think led me to doing that course was I just thought it was a bit of a wag, really. Like, you can go to university and draw cars. That sounds a bit more up my street after school when you just you're drawing cars in your margins of your maths book or whatever. So that was it was that level of thinking, really. There wasn't much strategy behind it.
Got it.
I enjoyed Concept Group afterwards, but then I'm not actually very good at drawing cars, which is kind of a bit of a slight issue if you want to be a car designer. I was always horrible at it. So I kind of branched out into the more kind of sci-fi, environmental design and stuff like that, just because it was, again, my arrogance and just following my muse rather than any kind of strategic thinking.
Nice. How long did you stick with, I guess, like doing cars as a profession until you switched? Or what was the moment when you switched into, I guess, entertainment design?
I think I got fired. I didn't really gel with the office environment as I mentioned at the time. Certainly not then. I mean, as I say, things have changed, but certainly in those days, I objected to having to go to bed early. I think that's absolutely disgusting. And getting up in the morning is, it's a hate crime, really. So I'm not going to tolerate that. And then I think I ended up just getting out of work from Americans. I would get a lot of work, and they obviously working in a different time zone. You tend to work at night. And that suited me down to the ground. So, their 3 p.m. is my 9 a.m. My 3 p.m. is their 9 a.m. So I've got plenty of time to get the work ready for the start of their day. And it just suited me better to do that kind of work. And I found that the money from America was better. Trying to get work in this country it's a much smaller economy. It's much more difficult to get money out of people. Whereas America, they pay properly. They're easy to work with. So,
do you still find that same dynamic exists today?
100%. Yeah. You get good crews here for sure, but I would say Americans, the economy is so much bigger than ours. It's just a matter of probabilities that you're going to end up working with Americans more. And I find Americans great to work with. I think very, very organized, very easygoing. They pay when they say they're going to pay, usually. So I've had a few run-ins with some crews that didn't, but generally it's the Americans are the way for me.
I can totally vouch for working with different time zones, especially when it's a time zone I think that's you're in the future to them. Like, it definitely helps for sure. And I totally concur with you. Like, mornings do feel like a foreign concept for me most of the times as well. Only the school run and responsibilities make me get up. Otherwise, it's either I'm ill, I'm an insomniac, or something else is going on that makes me wake up in the morning. Otherwise, I'm still in bed.
Yep.
And I do prefer nocturnal. Have you always been like that? Like more like nocturnal, or just like later on in the day?
Always. I don't know why, but that's always been the case since going back as far as I can remember. I'd always be up late reading and not wanting to get up in the mornings for some reason. So after a long time of trying to fight it, I just sort of gave in.
Yeah, exactly. How was school then in that case? Did you have issues with school? Right. Okay.
Yes. I was sent to a very conservative all boys boarding school in the country, kind of knockoff cheapo version of Eton, paid for by my dad's company, and I did not really get on there. Yeah, so, kind of strict rules and very conservative social philosophy. It wasn't for me at all. It certainly shaped me in the opposite direction of what I think it was supposed to. Interesting, actually, that another person who came from that school was a guy called Jeremy Corbyn, who also was shaped by his experience there. So,
interesting. So, like, not to get too personal in terms of like why, I'm definitely not trying to do like some kind of like therapy thing, but what is it about like your relationship with, I guess, like yourself and how it clashes with, I guess, like these structured kind of environments and situations? Have you ever like looked into that, or is it just more like have you been self-aware and you kind of like stayed true to that?
I mean, I did do therapy for quite a long time, and I found it super helpful for digging over all this stuff, because otherwise you just sort of, life is coming at you so constantly that something terrible, you end up having to just sort of let it go and move on to the next terrible thing. So, you kind of don't ever really deal with it, and it builds up and builds up and builds up. So yeah, I've really dug over those times, and how it sort of, it leaves a shadow on you forever. It definitely, the way you think from then on is changed, and being in a very strict, like I said, kind of caste environment, like in a school like that, there are the people with power and the people without, and you certainly start to see how this thing plays out, and it sort of trains you to be. You can see how Tories get to be the way that they are. You can see how Boris Johnson got to be the way he is from these schools. They train you to be very callous, ruthless, kind of squash anyone below you, toady to anyone above you. And I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way.
Was that literally really how it was? Like, I'm sure like you're summarizing all those years that you were there, but was that literally pretty much the curriculum, so to speak?
Because you don't ever get to go home, and you go to a boarding school, you go back to the boarding house. And, if you've got a problem with a kid, he will be there at the boarding house. It's like you never leave, especially if they're 2 years older than you and therefore much bigger than you. They've got, a few kilos on you. It just makes your life a misery. And then you end up making other kids' life a misery, or at least I found that I did. And obviously living with the feelings of disgust and shame that I got afterwards, and just, having been bullied and then being a bully, I was just I wash my hands of all of this. This is not for me. No thanks.
No, I respect it. I think it's important to kind of like just look, like you said, like just look back and just kind of at least, whether you can make peace with it or not, or just be aware. I think that's super important, especially moving forward as well. And even just when you're like, just to how you influence people around you, even if it's like passively or directly as well. Like, I think it's almost like the ultimate cheat code in many things, like just reflection almost, and just like reading back at your own, like whatever the life version of internet history is, and just kind of looking at like, what you've done and stuff. When did creativity be a part of your life? Like during this time, like do you feel like that kind of pushed you more towards creativity, or was the creative side of you always there?
It's always been simmering there in the background for sure. I found it a place to go if things were tough. You can always be thinking about your projects no matter how difficult life is. You can be thinking about what the next thing you're going to make is. I'm not really sure where it came from. I remember seeing my dad draw as a kid and thinking it was cool, and my grandfather as well. And learning that you could, maybe make a life as an artist certainly was a nice thing to find out as a kid. And I think that was always my aim. I don't really ever remember wanting to do anything else at all, to my detriment, because it meant that I often didn't do other things. So, there's huge areas of life that I feel like are kind of wished I'd spent more time on, really, rather than in my room, in my lab, working away on, this or that. But it is what it is.
I can totally relate to you in that regard as well. Like, it's something that I've never been able to shake. And a lot of it, I wanted to obviously pursue it as well. And I did. But there were times where it did kind of like, life got to the point where it's like, you need to kind of change something else. This is not going to work. And there's people that are relying on you and you better sort your shit out, basically. But I just could not. It just didn't move. It kept moving me almost. But then I also, I can also understand when you're saying like, the regret side of things, or maybe certain things that if I just didn't listen to it, if I could not listen to it, so to speak, then maybe things would have been safer, I guess. But with that said, do you have any regrets?
Oh, man.
I guess at least about the art career.
Do I have any really big... I kind of always wondered what would have happened if I got a job at Bungie in 2016 and kind of went out to meet them in my in my shambolic way. I missed the flight twice. Can you believe it?
Oh, no.
And they still, shipped me out there. But I don't know. I just wasn't vibing. As again, at the studio, they start laying it on you that you've got to be a hero every day and all this other stuff. And I just... Yeah, something about that just gets under my skin a bit. So I didn't go, and I'd often wondered how things would have turned out. But now you see the revelations coming out about Marathon. Destiny was quite troubled, and I've seen this kind of rot in other studios too. Exactly the stuff that people are talking about in Marathon, the kind of morale issues, the leadership issues, stuff like that. The art theft, perhaps not quite to the same degree, but I've seen it, and I think that is endemic in studios. At least in the small amount that I've seen, this kind of vibe is ubiquitous, and so now I'm thinking, no, maybe I dodged a bullet, really, and I think there's a few of those where I've had this opportunity, let it slip through my hands, regretted it, and since think maybe things worked out okay, actually. So no, I'm not sure I do have that many regrets.
Oh, awesome. What about freelance suits you? Like, I guess, like, I mean, there's the only other alternative, right? Like, you either work for somebody or you just do freelance. I guess there is no other, unless you kind of own a company and hire people, right?
There isn't. I don't think. I've found a balance where I have kind of repeat clients and a variety of other stuff coming in, but it's smiles and cries, really. You have the kind of variety, but you're always precarious. You never know where next month's rent's coming from. I guess I'm used to it now, but it doesn't make it really much easier, especially after COVID. I'm labouring under this huge debt that I ran up during COVID, so I'm paying that off every month as well. And it's just hard work trying to bring in enough money to live off every month, never knowing where it's coming from, never knowing if it's a bit like having 0 hours contracts. You never know if next month's going to be super busy or nothing, and you only find out it's going to be nothing by the end of the month when you've got no money. And, and it takes a long time to get over a bad month because then you've got the next month. So, Christmas is a disaster every year. Even if I've managed to work to save up some money before Christmas, it's always so difficult to get through Christmas and then January, February when the work kind of eases off. So, I've never really found a satisfactory balance. It's always been too much work and too much stress. And then, you're making good money, but then you go the other way and there's no work and stress, and I don't know, man. I've yet to really lock in a good balance. I'm 40 something now, and I'm still just the same. Trying to make ends meet each month, trying to get through, trying to get working and get it done and get it paid for, and repeating that process over and over again. Has that kind of dynamic always been there with freelance? Is that the most, like, I guess, constant thing that you've experienced with being a freelance artist? Yes, the I'm not sure the word, precariousness. Let's say it can be freeing because when you're in a job that you hate, it feels like it just goes on and on forever and you don't want to get up in the morning. Whereas with freelance, you lose your job all the time. You lose your job every 2 weeks because the project ends. So there's not that kind of terror. I certainly felt that I was less prone to being locked in. Like, for example, I worked in a studio job for a while and it wasn't the game ended up being cancelled actually right before launch. And again, the kind of atmosphere was off. And I just found that I was less worried about leaving than a lot of other people who've been there for a long time because they become reliant on the money. Their whole lifestyle depended on it. Their kids depended on it. Their houses, their mortgages, everything depended on this place. Any kind of reason to leave would be, it would have to be a big reason. Whereas I was much more easy just to walk out if things weren't working well. So it's you get sort of more used to the terror, I guess, but it doesn't make it any less, any less scary.
Oh, no.
Sort of not being able to make rent.
I can totally understand. And yeah, you're right. Like there is also like freelance does condition you. I mean, basically you just start a contract and it's just you're waiting to get fired essentially because it always ends. Like I know there's some that like are almost perpetually freelance, but I believe that those are like quite unique and very rare kind of situations. Like the nature of freelance is you're hired for that specific time and it's a limited time, and then obviously the production ends. And that's it. And obviously these things that we do work on have to be released. So they don't really have ongoing work, so to speak. And it does kind of condition you in a way where like you do kind of, like you said, like you kind of get used to, you know what it's like when something ends. And then you kind of, you can psych yourself up for like what to do next, either hustle or get the next gig or kind of like make preparations for the next gig as well. But then equally, like you said, like with being in studio, there's that comfort factor where like, okay, everything seemingly is secure. You know, you can kind of plan for the whole, however long your contract is, if it's permanent, for example, because you know, you can tell the banks and whoever else that this is how much I earn per month and you can plan, for example. But at the same time, like you have no control when a company goes bust, and then what do you do then? And I always look at it like they kind of, one has a perception of security, but ultimately everything is insecure. Unless you're writing your own checks, you're always at the whim of like, the events of the world and what have you.
I think that's very perceptive. Yeah. I think that's bang on. Yeah.
But with that said, there is like an appeal with the freelance side of things. Like, I don't know if it's the commitment side of things. Like you're just kind of committed to, or I guess like there's something powerful about just being committed to the task and then that's it. Rather than the job, which kind of get a bit weird and stuff. And I've had like, you know, sales jobs and what have you, and it's kind of been very rigid, like you said, dead end. And I definitely don't want to go back to dead end for sure. But it's always kind of dynamics and stuff. What are the pros and cons? I know you mentioned a little bit there already, but what are the pros and cons that you found in a profound way of being a freelancer?
There's a joke in Office Space where one character's like, you know, I don't want to have to work in this office for 25 years. And the other character turns to him with a completely different perspective. And it's like, I would actually love that kind of job security. Yeah. So it really depends on your perspective. But I think I just find freelance it's like rolling the dice. You never know if maybe you're going to get a 6 this time. Whereas if you know you're going to keep on getting 3s, I find that I don't know, I start to tune out. I'm not sure why. I need the adrenaline sometimes to kind of focus, I guess. Especially, you know, with trying to stay motivated when you've got other things like having a kid. You're always knackered. You never get any proper sleep. So, you know, you've really got to have that focus. And if it's, I don't know, too easy and too boring, I get kind of zoned out, and too difficult and stressful, I get zoned out. I'm always in pursuit of this magical sweet spot in the middle. I mean, don't get me wrong. As I said, I can visualize what a great studio job that I would love would be, but it would be my studio. You know what I mean? It would be my office. So, and as I've never got my arse and gear and done that, apart from working as a sole trader on my own, it's not really been an option.
Do you know what your sweet spot is, and how often have you hit that in your career?
Yeah, I find that 4 or 5 hours a day, I can do as much as I could in studio in 8 or 9 plus commuting. So I find that that's a sweet spot. I can sit down, put the baby to bed, you know, make a cup of tea and do 3 or 4 hours of kick-ass non-stop work it would take me. I would drag that out across a day or a week in an office, just because, you know, I don't know, psychologically I find that if someone else is, you know, between me and the boss, if you like, it's easier for me to slack. Whereas when I'm working direct with the boss on a pitch, we're trying to get this thing out there. I enjoy that buzz, you know, that kind of that excitement, and the fact that it's rapidly changing. But you know, this week you'll be doing a super carrier, for example. I'm looking at my screen now, and next week you might be doing a flying car, and the week after that you might be doing a freaking desert island on an alien world. Who knows? I love that variety.
So would you say
apply myself to each different brief? You know, it's a bit like being handed handed a job and you have to make the best of it as best you can with your skills. I just find that entertaining.
Sick. Is it like, do you like the fact that like there's potential, like, it's like almost like a mystery box every time, like you don't know what you're gonna get and then how it's gonna kind of turn out? Like does that kind of like what is it about that? Is it just the fact that it's a mystery and what challenge it's gonna offer?
I think it just keeps me on my toes. And you say mystery box, it's funny that the phrase that always comes to my mind is magic window. I imagine what's going to come through the magic window next, because you never know, and it can be something that completely changed your life. Like I put my work up on social media, obviously. You never know who's going to see that. Maybe they give you a call. Maybe they just put it on their mood board, give it to their guys. But maybe they give you a call, and you just never know what's going to come through the window. And I always find that possibility. It's a bit like walking down a beach. You never know what you're going to find amongst the pebbles. You know what's going to wash up from who knows where around the world. I love that feeling of beachcombing. Do
you have that same thing with your personal work as well? Definitely. Or do you have like a kind of different mentality?
I find that personal work, I can do the direct route straight to what I want. Whereas with clients, you're on their dime, you do what they want. Sometimes you can communicate almost telepathically with them and you get it, you nail it, they give you a big pile of money and you just do what they want and that's it. It's great. That's the dream. It doesn't often work that way. It's usually a much more prolonged process, working through what they want, you trying to present it again and again and again. So if I need doing my personal work, I can do something once, whereas I would have to do it 8 times for a client, and I can just go directly to exactly what I want. And I don't need to hold anyone's hand with the final product. It's just something I like. So yeah, there's a lot less to think about in my personal work in terms of trying to please anyone else, which is enjoyable. I find that much more fun. But on the flip side, it's nice to have a purpose given to you, a mission, and then to try and carry out that mission to the best of your ability can be entertaining too. So yeah, I like to have a bit of personal, a bit of serious, boring client work, pays the bills, and a bit of serious but maybe more fun and unpredictable client work, and switch between them, ideally for about 4 or 5 hours a day. In my palace, I like to work for 3 or 4 hours a day before I callous my precious fingers.
And I think you nailed it there. Like it's a case of, I'm obviously always asking guests like what do you prefer and what the kind of like you gravitate towards. But I guess ultimately is like all of them, like in whatever kind of configuration you need it as, whatever's like more of or less of. But I think they all complement each other, and you kind of need them all to feel complete as an artist.
Yes, I find you're much more driven to learn new techniques if you're working for someone else, and then you can use those techniques in your own work. So you might be able to look up tutorials and stuff which you wouldn't otherwise, and then you're like, oh my god, I can see a really cool use for that in my own personal work, and you spin something off that way. So they do, as you say, complement each other. It's a bit like, you don't want too much dessert, you don't want too much main, you want to have a nice balanced meal.
What length of project do you prefer? Do you have like a preference with that? Is that like no thing?
It's nice to push something forward for a couple or 3 years and see it come together. They're rare, although that is quite nice just to have something like that ticking away. And then of course the shorter stuff is, we need a pitch, we need some front end pre-production design. They might only last a month, and they can be a complete blast. For usually movies that never get made, but that's a lot of fun. Pitch work like that, very freeing, working with the director or the art director, and a tiny team. So yeah, it's a real mix of tempos. I think is nice. Seeing long things come together and slowly grow and build, or smashing stuff and kicking it out the door is also fun.
Yeah.
If in my dream, sorry, go on.
No, please go ahead.
In my dream design consultancy, where I'm the boss, it's Panine Farina type thing, and just you have a team of talented people who work for you. I'd love to just get in different projects and manage them and give them to someone who I think would do a great job, and kind of nudge them this way and that and let them get on with it. All of that kind of stuff to me appeals a lot more now than it ever used to. So that's kind of, that's my long-term dream, would be to do something like that, where I have a crew that I can work with and have more kind of capacity, basically, because otherwise it's very difficult to scale, being a single freelancer in any way that allows you to take your hands off the wheel a bit.
How long have you had that desire to do that?
I've always dreamed of, I think there's a guy called Luigi Colani, if audiences don't know the name, look him up. But basically, everything he creates had this kind of incredible bio mechanical vibe, and he seemed to just be some rich Swiss guy or Italian guy who just did this stuff. I don't really know where he came from, but he just seemed to always have like a crazy outfit he designed, and he'd be designing, these amazing new models, and he was just a character in a way that was larger than just being kind of sitting at a desk. And that's something about that appealed to me: the showman, the kind of weird inventor character, and also styling Ferraris, but then the next month, someone would want you to do like a woman's razor blade, and the next month it would be, radio. Just something about that kind of product design always just appealed to me. I guess it was because I grew up reading books about that, where that was the big thing. Philippe Stark and Giugiaro, Bertoni, Zagato, Pininfarina, these kind of sculptors of industrial products. I always found that just very, very appealing and aspirational. Raymond Loewy, Sid Mead, obviously. Something about it just seemed like a lot of fun. And if you've got your own name on it, maybe you've got a bit more clout. Maybe you can be a bit less mercenary sometimes and do something that's more artistic, or you can push back against stuff more than you would otherwise. There's just a little bit more weight to you if you're visible, I guess, rather than being in the back rooms. But that would be my dream, to be a kind of Pininfarina studio. That'd be awesome. I'd love that, and just be completely agnostic about what you're designing. Like, as I say, one week it's an orange squeezer, next week it's a jet engine nacelle. Who knows? That would be my dream.
Why has it not happened yet?
I basically still live like I'm in my 20s, even though I all of a sudden have a family and a kid and all these responsibilities. I never really grew up, and that has its pros and cons. Don't have any access to finance. Can't get loans, couldn't get a mortgage if I tried. My bank account's always empty, apart from what I've just been paid. So you're not a good risk when it turns in terms of. I think what I need is a business partner, but that's a difficult thing to find. Someone who can do the more, briefcasey stuff, I guess. I actually saw an advert recently. There's an airfield down the way in Shoreham. There was an old workshop company that had been making motorsport engines for many, many decades, and all sorts of stuff. In one of these places, a bit like where Ferraris would be built in the 60s, little old guys with, experts in their field, absolute geniuses, all just working away on. And it was up for sale for like a song. It was probably 250 grand or something. And I was like, man, what I wouldn't do just to get a loan and buy that and just start, keep those guys on. But we maybe pivot a bit from motorsport towards, let's do, I've always been interested in the idea of combining a hydrofoil with a ground effect in a boat. So that's one of my projects I'm working on at the moment with a company. And I'd love to do racing versions of that, or kind of yacht versions of that, for example. That would be a fun thing to play around with. Just creating these kind of beautiful, highly energy efficient skimmers, with maybe a sail on the top, or who knows, and maybe convincing someone with some money to part with it to make one of these things real. I think things like that. I have this. That's the kind of dream, going into this place that's mine, and we all work on kind of crazy projects and stuff like that. I would love to do that. So I pretend I'm doing that when I'm working on my own in my office.
Oh, no, fair enough. I think that's something that we kind of all have this background, like, I don't know, like role play, live cosplay thing that we think we'd be kind of doing and that kind of stuff. But I'd love for you to, I would love to see that as well. Like, it just sounds super epic, super cool. I like how you kind of like think real world / obviously like, fictional as well. Like, how do you control all these ideas? How do you tame them, or do you not even tame them at all?
I mean, it's like a TV that's turned up to the top volume all the time. So it's sort of trying to get them out as quickly as I can usually. And that does tend to the presentation suffering a little bit, perhaps, if I've done something fast, this kind of sketchiness, but I just to get it out of my head onto the page, proliferate it across social media. And then you never know. Sometimes people see it and pick it up and maybe weave it into their new movie or whatever. So it's nice to kind of just completely fill the information environment with your stuff, and you never really know where it's going to end up. I find that amusing. That's a lot of fun. I forgot the question.
Oh no, just like ideas. Like obviously, like I said, like the TV on full blast. Have you gotten used to the noise then on full blast? Have you just acclimatized to it, or is it still a pain?
I've always been a big pot smoker. I found that helped to kind of quiet down and make me more patient,
Yeah.
make me more kind of able to focus on detail. Whereas normally it's kind of scatterbrained. I feel like I'm very much the wild-haired, eccentric, nutty professor archetype. As my girlfriend will tell you, I just left the pot boiling just now, actually, for a cup of tea. So I'm terrible for leaving a pot on the stove and wandering off and getting distracted by one thing, and then two other things distract me from that, and so on and so forth. But that can be quite productive in a creative way, because I'll have like a huge hard drive of just weird crap that I found on the internet that I've, kind of similar to what I was saying about other people picking up my stuff. I pick up stuff all the time, and it just marinates in your head. And every so often you see how something could fit together so neatly that you have to do it. You know what I mean? You're like, I have to make this. Why wouldn't I be? And that was the way with the idea of combining hydrofoils with wing and ground effects, chronoplans. It just seems so elegant. And you find that a lot with the way shapes fit together, the way ideas will fit together, the way music and video will fit. It's as if it was waiting for you to find it almost and uncover it. One of my great hobbies I love the most is I'll make a ton of still images, and then you can sort of push them around until they form almost like a time passing narrative. Like, this could be the start and this could be the end, and this could be and you start to think, wow, what would it take to bridge between these two images? And you maybe write a little caption and draw another image. And I find that over time you can start to, what I end up producing is these little slideshows of just, still images and some music. It's so weird how you might make this slideshow, compile it, and then add the third suggestion that YouTube gives you of music. It gives you these free music you can put over your videos. And the third one that you choose is perfection. It couldn't be better. It fits so well with it's such a weird feeling to feel this kind of audio visual experience come out of nowhere. And then, maybe more ideas will come. I'll change something. I'll add something. I'll think, you could add a little bit of world building there, a little clue here. And it just, I don't know, I find such satisfaction in doing stuff like that. That it's just, I definitely, if I had more money and more time, I would love to make these kind of shorter films into something a bit more substantial. There's a movie called a short film called La Jetty, a French short.
Okay, I haven't heard of that, no.
Okay, check that out. It's basically, the movie 12 Monkeys? It formed the basis of that. So that Terry Gilliam.
So that came before 12 Monkeys?
Oh, yeah. This was a black and white still images slideshow, basically, with some sound, narration, some music, some simple synths. I think it won an Oscar. It's just fantastic. It's like 20 minutes of this kind of looping time travel story told through. All it is just beautiful black and white photographs. And you think, if you can tell a story that good with just some photos, the world is your oyster, because you don't need big bang for your buck production value. You don't need AI to make loads of highly intricate images. You can just tell a simple story with these images, and I find that such a horizon broadening experience that it's really stuck with me, that you can make these slideshows into stuff. And not everyone likes them. They're not going to make you're not going to get 1 million views, but there are people out there who will vibe with them, and it's so nice to kind of feel when people come back and say, I enjoyed that, it's like, awesome, man. I'm really proud and pleased to hear that, because, I enjoyed making these things, and I enjoy, sending them out, and I hope other people like them.
That's absolute music to my ears, obviously pun intended. Because when you're creating, like, it is all the dimensions in one go. Like, we obviously end up in 2D or whatever, but like you said, like, there's so many things that you can plug in, almost like, if it's like an analog sync.
Yes.
You can patch all these things into it and then have all the different waveforms, and obviously all this kind of good stuff comes out. Do you do that almost with, obviously, when it's applicable, do you do that constantly, or is that only like at specific times, or is it almost like this specific act that you do when it happens? Or is that part of your creative process?
Reactionary. So I might work on something very, very tight and controlled for a client, where everything has to be just, every T has to be dotted and every I has to be crossed. Whereas after a week of that, I'm ready to cut loose and do something completely more freestyle. So again, it kind of goes back to what we were saying about a nice sweet spot variety between. It's a bit like you want to go and work out, and then you want to practice and read, and then you want to put your skills to work in a real game. If you're playing football, you want to go and train, you want to play a few fun games, and then you want to put your skills to work in a proper game. It's nice to rotate around those kind of states. Each one has its own and you don't want to do too much of either of them. You don't want to play too many games in a row. You don't want to train too hard. It gets a bit dull. Just to kind of rotate, I find is very, very key. The turning of the seasons. It's the same thing with work. You have to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Otherwise, I find it starts to drive me nuts.
Yeah, and it's always like constant motion as well. Like, because if you stick to one thing and you stick with it, I find you kind of become stagnant or maybe a bit too stiff with that. And then if you want to go to the other thing, you can't really just like jump over to that because you're not calibrating that kind of way. And it's this constant battle, just trying to stay sharp. My brother, and my dad, they run. I definitely don't. But they're like, my dad does marathons and stuff, and they're always complaining about, well, not complaining, but they always don't want to get to that state where they stop running, because when they get back on it, it's harder to, get back up to speed kind of thing. And yeah, it's that kind of like discipline and stuff. Back to the audio visuals kind of stuff. That stuff always and still will fascinate me. I also agree as well, like what you said there, about what really makes something compelling. And growing up, you always think like whatever's bigger, faster, better, more graphics or what have you. Yes, it gives you that kind of initial hit, but when you really analyze things, it's always whatever's more simple or more simplified that really kind of resonates and connects. And whether that's visual, whether that's just in movement or the harmony of certain things and what have you, like it's always like nice to kind of like geek out and try and decode these kind of things as well. With the sounds kind of thing though, like, is there anything particular that you go for? Do you kind of like prescribe the sound before you start making the imagery, or is it all just, again, mystery box and then let's go?
Yeah, that can really work in your favor, just choosing at random, because all of a sudden you found something that you would never have chosen that works 20 times better than the thing that I had in mind. Other times I'm like, I have to put some, kind of ethereal synths behind this or something just for the mood. But often I really love the thumbing, obviously it's all electronic now, but kind of thumbing through the records and just picking one out at random. I like the look of the cover, or I like the name, or usually it's on YouTube, it's the time of the track roughly equals the video I'm trying to make. So I'll search for that length of time. And just, as I say, literally the second or third one that I pick often is like, the first one is so wrong, it couldn't be more wrong. And the second one is perfect. Like it somehow matches so well. So yeah, I need, and that it's maybe not quite exactly as you want it at that moment, but you can see the changes you have to make it fit. And something about that is such a buzz. It's strange. It's like this clay that you're pushing around on the desk. All of a sudden, it starts to move on its own, and it's crazy. The rules that you've put in place start to kind of iterate on themselves, and it's really interesting seeing how stuff that was before, it was just bits of color and ideas and a bit of photo bash and stuff. All of a sudden, it starts to cohere into a real feeling, a real place, and you can hear the sounds, you can smell the smells, you can hear the people talking. It's strange how it becomes alive. But yeah, I find that a drug.
Do you find that can ever become a problem? Like, do you ever get frustrated in that kind of zone though?
I think if I was only doing that, if I was a millionaire lottery winner, I would actually it would sprawl, the work. I would have to include this, and then I think, well, I have to include that. So in a way, having a limited amount of time makes your choices more important. You have to fit it between two limits sometimes. And again, that's what I like about client work. Sometimes they give you these completely arbitrary limits, and you then have to maneuver within them as best you can. And I just find that fun. There's a great, I think it's T.S. Eliot saying to that effect, where if you have to work within limits, that's when you often find you're at your most creative.
Yeah.
Whereas without limitation, your work will sprawl, and you'll end up with this big, hodgepodge. Lots of intricate detail, but it's all kind of not really going anywhere, and it doesn't have any overall, thrust. It's like this big pile of stuff, which it's a vibe, but it's not always what you're after. And it's good if you want to make an image that pops to have it kind of simple. I think, maybe have a couple of innovations, a couple of conceptual innovations, a simple composition, some nice presentation, and you end up kind of moving towards where someone like Sid Mead is. He's got this incredible ability to combine everything into these images. Not to compare myself. I mean, the better I get at painting, the more I realize how beyond he really was. There's an Instagram post at the moment, and it shows you zoom ins on some of his stuff, and it's just dude.
Yeah.
The guy was out of his mind, insane.
And like,
incredible.
I obviously, because I've growing up is all traditional and like whatever you can get hold of and start making stuff, and obviously transitioned towards digital when I was late into uni. So I understand, like, I guess, not understand, but you know, like, I'm very familiar comfortably with all the mediums in that kind of sense. Because now some people just only jumped in directly through digital, and then obviously they'll kind of branch out eventually into like maybe traditional medium or what have you. But then like seeing what Sid has, his legacy, and obviously his quality of work, quality of design, quality of execution, and what he did with the tools that he had back then. If he had these kind of tools that we have now, like, it would just be equally as insane. And I kind of taught me that, like, tools don't matter, so to speak. Obviously they're important. We use them, we need them. But at the same time, execution and knowledge and craft and all these kind of things that's where it's at. And that's something that I see with Sid. Any kind of like other people or artists that kind of are a benchmark for you, or like you on the pedestal of just like, you know, Mount Rushmore of art?
Definitely. I think, I mean, obviously there's far too many to list, but I think if I want to feel the sketchy pencil juice, I'll look at someone like James Jean's sketchbooks. His stuff is always, he's just sitting there in a cafe drawing other people over and over and on top of each other and stuff. But something about his work is just so honest and, you know, just wonderful. It always gives me the urge to go and draw. And I'm at the moment, me and my kid are sitting at the dining table a lot, just drawing, and I'll be drawing like the curve of her finger or how her ankle is or whatever, just as quickly as I can, because she's always moving. It's an incredible kind of training object to try and draw this kid. And obviously she's so beautiful that it, you know, even if you screw it up, you still get a nice drawing. So I've been using a lot of pencils recently, I guess in a reaction to the AI stuff a bit. Although I'm sure an AI could emulate pencil drawings just as well as it could any other kind of picture. But, you know, just for my own sake, I enjoy the difficulty and rewarding feel of pencil. It's very unforgiving, a colored pencil. It can be. Although drawing in orange is nice because it's so forgiving. It's a bit like I don't know, I guess like the great masters all did drawings in the kind of orange color, just because it's so nice to work with, and one line doesn't ruin it, which is nice. Who else? John Singer Sargent. I've got a few big books of his stuff, and it's just great seeing that on the page printed. Even better than on screen. His stuff is just, I mean, every stroke, the economy of it is insane. Everything is doing something. He's never sort of stabbed at the page and, not really sure what I'm doing. Every stroke has purpose. I mean, incredible talent, and very beautiful work. But of course, my mind goes blank now.
That happens to me all the time.
Tons of sci-fi. Tons of sci-fi illustrators as well. Wayne Barlow, big Wayne Barlow fan. Privileged to be able to call myself call Wayne a friend as well.
Oh, awesome!
Which is awesome. Big fan of his stuff since I was in short trousers. Who else? I like Ridley Scott's style. I like how he can come to a project and just be Ridley Scott on any project that he's been given. He's still a kind of journeyman director, even into his 80s. Sometimes for worse, but usually for better. I think his stuff's just wonderful, timeless. I'm a huge fan of James Cameron's kind of 90s stuff, early 90s stuff. You know, the kind of T2, Aliens, late 80s, early 90s. I think that kind of era where it's crossing over between CGI models, a lot of innovation. Some of them effects don't necessarily stand up, I guess, but generally it all looks pretty bang on, even all this time later. And I think James Cameron's work is like a school. You can just look into his stuff and just learn so much. He's just such a great teacher. The Impressionists, something was going on about the 1880s that was, I don't know what it was, but guys in Russia, France, England were just absolutely cooking in the late 1800s. Stuff that just I can look into for hours and never get bored. Always see something new. Mine's gone blank. I'll have to go and have a look.
That's all good.
My own library.
When it comes to like inspirations, how are they for you? Like, are they obviously, like you always got to do deep dives in them. You got to open a book and just really study them, like you said. And every time it's like a great film or a great song, you can watch it or listen to it 100 times, and you still find something new, or still see something that you never saw before, or even appreciate something that you maybe, like just glossed over initially, and then you think, wow, that is actually like a masterstroke, and I never knew that was possible. Or at least, like you said, when we're trying to like do things ourselves, like you really appreciate how difficult these things that seem overly simple are. But again, with that said, when you are with inspiration, and obviously with an artist, whether you like it or not, you're always going to be inspired whether by something or someone. Is it like a passive kind of energy or active kind of energy? Like, do you kind of seek out specific artists to get inspired, or like, is it kind of just like a background noise?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I say, with the James Jean stuff, if I want to get in a sketchbook mood, I'll definitely go and look up his stuff just to see how the master would do it, and it gives you the confidence to try it yourself. I think that's the main thing. Monkey see, monkey do, in some ways. So yeah, or as I say, I've got this giant hard drive folder of just every weird thing I've got off the internet, everything anyone sent me, just random crap, and just leafing through that, you'll end up with this kind of real interesting mixture of stuff jumping out at you. So, you might get very random combinations. I find that quite productive. And so with artists, I'll be looking through my folder for stuff that might be in the same kind of frequency as what I want to do, whether that's, I tend not to look at too much other concept art because I don't want to be too tempted just to rely on that, by just nicking someone else's concept art. It's not really my thing. I'd rather steal things from a bit further afield, I guess. So ancient history, or like holiday photos I've taken, or, kind of a weird movie I saw one time. I'd try and be a little bit more discerning in where I pinch my ideas from, I guess.
I find that I'm the same, and I think it's also like, I guess there's more to chew on when you do go like further far afield, and even to very abstract places. Like, it's untreaded snow or virgin snow, whatever it is, and it's like, you can just start making snow angels and go wild.
Absolutely.
What is your reference? Obviously, you mentioned a bit there, like you got like this kind of like exotic, like folder, or like this little mini universe of inspiration. What is your research journey like? Like, is it just pure geek outs, or like, is it almost like in a weird way, which I've recognized about myself, like I got this like digital hoarding, like all these kind of like references and things and photos and what have you. I'm probably never going to see them again, but I feel like I need this just in case. What's it like for you?
I need this. Yes, I completely agree. It's a bit like finding something you think, I'm sure I'll find a use for this. I'll put it into this cupboard and never look at it again. It's exactly the same thing. But once in a while, it is good to turn out your cupboards and see what you find. And there's often some pretty cool stuff in there that you forgot about. You can put to use in your current predicament. So I find that's very handy to have all of these stashes of stuff that you can just push the arrow key and let it just scroll very, very rapidly on the screen, and something will jump out at you for whatever reason. And I'm happy to be guided by that. It's a bit like reading the tea leaves. You see an image in the tea leaves or in the clouds that your subconscious is trying to give to you. If someone comes to me with a project, I'll have a set process where I'll request a mood board off them and a list of their kind of demands, but I'll often make a shopping list myself, go away and find out about how this works, how that works, what would it look like if you cut this in half, to give myself a sense of the kind of the ingredients that I'm going to need to procure and prepare for this meal that I'm going to cook. So I definitely go out and gather all the different potential parts and things that I think could be assembled into something interesting.
Is it organized?
At least the first couple of days. It's a mixture of organized and deliberately disorganized, I think, is the best way. So, you've got your desires, you've got your things you have to achieve, but if something comes across your path that you think this could work, you've always got to be receptive to that. I think that would be a mistake to kind of let stuff slip, especially if you've got an idea. Even if it's an idea that's directly related to what you're doing right now, I find my subconscious tends to be trying to tell me something for a reason. So I'll try and at least make a note of it and come back to it. And it's funny how things seem to just, at the very end, when you're panicking, the groundwork that you laid, seemingly at random, all of a sudden starts to fit together in a way that you weren't really sure of yourself even at the time. And it's like, okay, maybe practice, I guess. But I find that I work in a sort of quasi chaotic, but generally quite deliberate way.
Any kind of particular subject matter, or maybe even specific kind of like, I guess, what you can categorize as something that can be categorized as, like you tend to lean towards the most, or gives you most kind of like reward in terms of like reference and research?
I do. I've always found people difficult to draw, so I've avoided it out of just laziness. So yeah, I've got a lot of kind of spaceships and futuristic stuff like that, because no one's ever seen a futuristic spaceship before, so they can't really tell you that it's wrong. So, and I love drawing stuff from books. If I read a book, it's the easiest thing in the world to just draw the image that you've seen whilst reading this author's work. But I think it's also good to push yourself. And as I say, I'm trying to do more life drawing now and stuff, just because I find it so fucking difficult that it's actually, in a way, more satisfying to do, because you're not just in your comfort zone. So yeah, good to get out of the comfort zone, as everyone knows, but it's not easy to do that always.
How is that life drawing journey going? Like, is that like a prolonged thing you've been doing for? Like, is it a recent thing?
It's really just because I do so much childcare. Like my other half has been unwell since not long after the baby was born. She became extremely ill, and fortunately, thank goodness, she's very much on the mend now. But 2024 was very difficult. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was hard enough for me, and I wasn't the one who was ill, so I can only imagine. She's really been through some wars, and as I say, thankfully, very, very thankfully, I'm very grateful to say that she is very much better now. Not fully amended, but certainly not. We were staring down the barrel of maybe losing it last year. It was pretty terrifying, especially with a young baby. So that was something difficult. So basically, the long of the TLDR is that I spend a lot of time with the kid. We have to find something to do, and it's nice to sit at the table with pencils and pens. And I found myself drawing for the first time in so long. Probably since I was obviously not her age, but maybe 10, just drawing for fun, just drawing anything, not really caring about what's going to come out of it, just drawing and drawing and drawing. And I found that to be great fun, enjoyable to spend time with her like that. And it's also a practical way of looking after a baby, because you've got to keep them as you know, you can't ever look away. So 14, 15 hours a day of that, you've really got to find ways to entertain yourself as well as her, otherwise you're going to lose it. So this is one of those ways. And
the chaotic things I mentioned before, they like multiply by factors of 1 billion of how chaotic they can be, and kind of the stuff that they do. Now, obviously I have my own like kind of tales with this, but I'd love to hear your perspective. How has becoming a parent influenced and affected in any particular way you as a creative?
I found it's made the thing in Palestine, the genocide of the Palestinians, far more difficult to block out than I used to be able to do. I used to think these people far away in wherever, I wouldn't even be aware of it. Honestly, I would be too zoned in on my own world. Now seeing kids who look just like my kid, with their heads blown off, it's very, very difficult to deal with, really. I've seen stuff in the last year on my timeline that I don't think anyone should ever have to see, let alone these poor people live and die through. And so now that consciousness definitely feels far more developed now than ever. And it makes me, you see more in the world everywhere. I find it very much more difficult to block out other people anywhere, anyone suffering. I find it so much more difficult to just not care. I can't do anything. I can't really help, but it's, I don't know, that's changed me a lot. I think just having a baby, wanting them to be happy, fearing for them when they're ill, the terror of how it feels when their life is in danger. When often babies have health challenges and stuff, and it's a whole new level of terror and dread. So yeah, it's imagining what it must be like to give birth in a hospital that's also just being hit by a cruise missile. It really affects me a lot more than it used to. But I think getting older, I'm also much more practiced in my work. I only have a few hours after midnight when she goes to bed to work, so I'm much more efficient than I ever used to be. I cut straight to the chase much more than I ever used to. I feel like a much sharper implement than I used to be in terms of design, much more honed. So yeah, having a kid, it really, really puts a squeeze on your free time. You have no free time really. Very little sleep for the first year. The first 6 months is just pure torture. My
Oh
experience, but after that it starts to ease up.
Oh
But
no,
yeah, we're getting to the point now where she's. Oh, go on. Sorry, I cut you off.
no, please. I was going to share some of my war stories, but no, please continue.
I'd be interested to hear them.
Oh no, it's like with some of the issues that my eldest had, she couldn't sleep. She had quite aggressive eczema when she was quite young.
Right.
So
Right.
that first 6 months that you said where you get no sleep, that was like 5 years for me. And I'm the parent that gets up first and can't go sleep, so I tend to fall on my shoulders. And yeah, the doctors have been telling me off as a result, as to the consequence of all that basically sleep deprivation. But no,
yes.
I totally, yeah, everything you just said, bang on. And even like you said, like, you know, perspectives, and there's something, it's kind of like, not to say this about yourself, but any kind of personal experience you have, or you're responsible of something, like we have this kind of like selfish take on things. And you also kind of like, oh, how would I feel if I was in that kind of situation? And like you mentioned, like obviously what's happening in Gaza and everywhere else, and any kind of story where like I can kind of relate to what it's like, because I know what it's like, you know, for example, whatever it might be, it might not be just being a parent, it could be something else. And then you think, oh, how would I handle that? How would I handle this? Yeah. And all that kind of stuff. And like, yeah, it's something that does, it's interesting, obviously, if you're looking from a distance, or you're observing us like an alien, for example, like what the brain does and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, how it literally like almost like reprograms you to like how you behave, how you think, and all that kind of stuff. And I think, like you said there, like I think a lot of people can relate to that, where usually if it doesn't really like, you know, metaphorically speaking, like not on your timeline, like it's not a thing that's happening, so to speak. Like we're quite ignorant to a lot of kind of stuff. But I think also like as even creatives as well, like something that I remember being, you know, before I was a parent, it was a case of I realized how much time I had and how much time I didn't use that, especially like, you know, for building my craft and what have you as well. But then all of a sudden, those powers of like not being efficient that kind of weren't there, or very dormant. When I had a kid and I had like very limited amount of time, all of a sudden I can do it now. Like it's just quite interesting, like how these kind of situations make us kind of like make these kind of like almost like development jumps, so to speak. I have no point what I just said, but yeah, I just wanted to share some of my kind of like takes on parent stuff as well.
I completely co-sign on all of that. I completely co-sign on all of that. I think you're absolutely right. It really makes you economical with your time, because you know that you've got to be up tomorrow and you can't be too sleep deprived. You get used to a certain amount, don't you? But you cannot be. I can work till 3. If I work till 4, I'm fucked the next day. If I work till 5, every second is excruciation, because I've got to get up at 9. So I can work till 3 and then I'm fine. If I get my 6 hours, I'm pretty much good to go. Anything less than that and I start to lose it. And for the first year, you as you know, you're dealing with 2 hours, and it's a disturbed 2 hours. I felt like I was basically one night I went out to get some groceries and I didn't realize the store, the plate glass window wasn't a door of the shop, and I just walked straight into it. Okay. Smashed it, knocked myself out on the floor. That was happening quite a bit. So I lost my keys all the time. I'm amazed that I didn't crash my car. I don't think it should be. It was really, really difficult. So it makes you so much more, and to earn money through that, to keep the rent money coming in, you really get. You don't fuck about when you get in front of the computer. You're straight to it, straight to business. Oh
no, for sure. I think kids or any kind of responsibility, definitely. You don't realize how much it takes a toll on you physically, obviously mentally as well. And they're like have different kind of like consequences, but they're kind of all like this weird symbiotic kind of like thing that eats away at you. It's very weird, very strange. And I don't know about yourself, but I only realized way after, and I kind of look back and now at the time, no perception of it whatsoever. Just kind of like just powering through it, and almost like zombie mode. Regarding
I totally agree.
Regarding being a parent though, like, do you find being an artist and knowing what it can do you think it gives you a bit of a cheat code to being a parent as well?
I think there's certainly something to that. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love being able to work from home because it means I can see her every day. You know, I complain about long hours of childcare, but what that really means now after the baby phase is we just spend all day at the beach or at the playground, which is brilliant. It's like, you know, it's like being a kid again yourself a lot because you've got to fill these hours. You don't have much money. So it's a bit like being in the alleyway as a kid, just kicking stones around and trying to make the fun that you can out of jumping off a fence or, you know, just making fun from wherever you are is something that I haven't done for so long. It really feels like being, you know, a kid again. So it's very fun these days to just do a lot of that. I'm very lucky. I think I'm very privileged to be able to do that. Thank goodness. I wouldn't like to have to go out to an office every day and not see her and come home when she's asleep and stuff. Even if there are times when I long to get out of the house, I think the cost of that would be just something I'm not really willing to pay. I love being able to be here with her, just through the way my work has been set up.
No, I totally concur, and we're on the same page in that regard. Like, same kind of conclusion, same kind of like looking at things. Obviously, with this kind of stuff, and every parent will agree, like it's so fatiguing sometimes, and it can get a bit much. Because it is like it's an act of endurance sometimes. Like no sleep, have to stay on your toes because these little creatures are a hazard all the time, either to yourself or to themselves as well. And you constantly, like putting out fires, sometimes literally as well.
They're constantly trying to kill themselves all the time.
Yeah, for sure, yes. And but then at the same time, like what I would say and what I've learned, and I wish I did more often, and it's a case of like, but when do you do it? Is how it manifests, how it works out for yourself or whoever it is. Just take those breaks or find those moments of respite, recharge, and then get back to it as well, because it does kind of catch up with you. It does kind of like, or it just kind of like chips away at your, I guess, life force. Like you lose some HP, you lose some kind of like, you don't get the same kind of like, you lose some horsepower as well. But yeah, that's the end of like kind of like, parental advice and whatnot. Let's talk about your design and your work and stuff. The way when I first discovered your work and saw it, like there's one thing that's been consistent in my opinion is originality. Would you agree? Do you think your work is original?
Thank you. I try and be original, but I think I'm always completely indebted to the 3 or 4 things that I've connected together that were already existing to create that. It's rare that I genuinely have an innovation of my own, completely of my own. I think once in a while I will have an idea that I cannot find an example of it out there. But it's rare. As I say, the idea of combining hydrophores with ekranoplans, I was sure that I would find something out there, and I couldn't. So that is one of the few times when I think I've maybe had some kind of genuine insight. But then there are other people doing the exact same thing now. So maybe it was just one of those things where multiple different people, the idea was coming, its time was ready, So who knows? I would say I'm really glad that feeling of originality comes across, but I certainly feel like I'm always doing it. People do down AI. I think AI is very capable, and I like often the things that it creates, and it's quite interesting, some of the stuff that it makes. I think the companies and the people behind it are extremely sinister, but often the art that people make can be quite interesting, and you can see how it's combined this and that, and it's got this incredible technical skill. It has absolute patience. It will fill out every part of the image will be detailed, whereas a human will obviously be much more limited in their time, and much more economical. So there is something to be said about what AIs can do, I think, at least as a use case for making weird shit that I see on Instagram, which I find interesting. And I found I work in a similar way. I will regurgitate and refract the things that I've seen through the prism that is my imagination. But I think it's rare that it's original. So I'm super pleased that you feel different.
I guess, originality, and I'll give my quick definition. Like, I guess it's a kind of one of those rhetorical terms, because I agree, like maybe there's no such thing as something truly original, truly novel, because like you said, you need to come to some kind of reference, and everything's just like kind of transfer of energy, and you need to consume something to be able to kick something out. So I guess it's almost like rearranging things all the time. But what is your take on originality? Like, do you think it's a thing, and is it like kind of like a benchmark that you should strive for?
Yeah, I don't want to let something go out the door that I don't think has something about it. I don't want to just send out drivel. and again, kind of going back to James Cameron, you're watching Terminator or Aliens. He's always trying to fill the screen with stuff that's cool. It serves the story. Sometimes he will come up with these wonderful innovations because he's so strongly following this story, and he needs to create something new to do that, which is mind blowing to me. And I try and follow that ethos. I want what's in my images to be interesting, cool looking, to kind of sweeten the pill of whatever's behind, the philosophy or the thought behind the image. You want to make it interesting to look at. So yeah, his stuff always has this kind of boldness and clarity, and it can be very, very original. It can be just something that's we've seen before, but given a new spin, and that gives his work a kind of timelessness, I think.
Yeah.
Especially those two films, especially for me, Terminator 2 and Aliens. I just think, you can watch them again and again and again and again, just because there's so much thought, so much vision put into them. There's never a point where you think that he's kind of ummed and ahed. It's always, even looking at his concept sketches, he knew exactly what he wanted to make. He teamed up with some super, super talented people who could help him do that and help him develop those ideas and look at the results. It's mind blowing. So yeah, I definitely try and keep that philosophy in mind. I don't want to send something out the door that when someone sees it, they just think it's boring. I want them to think, oh, that's, this is worth my time, basically. I don't want to waste people's time. So if I do come up with an idea that I like and think is interesting, I will try and combine it with two others, and that will be satisfactory to go out as an image. I don't want to just send stuff out that is completely just blah, nothing.
Yeah, no. I guess undoing my point as well, about originality. I love spaceships also, and that's something that I spend a lot of time doing, and just obsessing over in general. And it kind of has to be recognizable, but at the same time not. Obviously, people, when you see, it's a spaceship, and there's a certain kind of things that define what a space, like a bird, for example. Birds come in all shapes and sizes, but you kind of tell what a bird is, so to speak. And I guess it's kind of you kind of know what the recipe is, but you just kind of find new ways to cook it, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. And some twist, some novelty, something that people are familiar with, something fun, something scary. You don't want to make it too easy. You don't want to waste people's time, and that's certainly my vibe. I want to give people stuff that they can get their teeth into a little bit more. Yeah,
interesting. So, is the audience at the front of your mind, or quite to the forefront when you're creating?
I feel like I'm the audience always. I want to make stuff that I like or would like, and if other people are kind of vibing with that, that's awesome. That's great. I'll do stuff that I think is going to be poppy, I guess, and other stuff that I think is going to be much more obscure and difficult to understand for anyone else, that's the fun of being an artist, isn't it? You don't always have to hold everyone's hand, but I certainly don't want stuff to be so obscure that it doesn't give anyone anything. You want people to have something to grip onto. So and kind of playing with the dials of those qualities on each piece, definitely. But yeah, you want to give someone something that they will be captivated by visually, and then maybe look into it a little bit more and start to kind of inhabit it themselves, imagine what it would be like to be there. Because that's what I always loved about, sci-fi book covers or whatever. What would it be like for me to go into that crazy image? And so that's always the buzz that I would like to give other people. I want them to feel that this isn't an artist's work. This is a doorway that you can look through into a whole different world. And I want to try and create the kind of that feel, and so all my choices will be in support of that. But that doesn't necessarily mean a sci-fi futuristic city. I'm a huge Sopranos fan. I love watching Sopranos. I love watching the clips, compilations and stuff.
Yes,
and there's so much going on there. There's so much depth that it's infinitely inspiring.
I love it. It's one of the best shows ever.
Right, and it's just a depiction of some kind of dumb guys in a small town somewhere, and yet it makes you completely care about it. So I find that endlessly inspiring, the kind of dark sense of humor that it has.
Yes.
It's very woke in a lot of ways, in the way that it kind of doesn't necessarily, it condemns a lot of the stuff that it shows you, basically. It's maybe not as woke as it would be these days if it was made, but it certainly, to me, had a good heart behind all of the evil. I always got the sense that it wasn't trying to make I mean, it's odd because Tony Soprano's become this archetype of like badass and cool, but when you watch a show, he's like vulnerable, miserable.
Oh, totally.
He's not
Yes.
sleeping. He's got no friends.
I mean,
this badass.
It just starts off with him in his pool with, is it geese or is it birds?
Yeah, the ducks.
And they just fly off,
right.
and that's it. That's literally like, in a way, like what the whole show is about. Did you watch it when it first came out, or did you watch it afterwards?
I only came in. I was old enough to sort of start watching episodes, but it was difficult to find it on TV. But watching one or two in a row, you'd be gripped immediately. I think I probably came in about season 3, and didn't have a clue what was going on, who anyone was, what they were talking about. But it was just something about it. And then I find it quite helpful. People make there's a guy called Borko on YouTube who compiles compilations, and basically it'll be just Hesh, just his appearances throughout the show, or just Tony B. And it's so interesting seeing these characters evolve and how well written everything is. The way they lie is so believable to each other and to themselves. Everything about it it's just something to study. It's like Shakespeare or something. It's a text that you can study again and again. So I find that very, very inspiring.
That's awesome to hear. I remember like my first pass at it, me and my friend used to have like this two-man like kind of like show / book club type thing where we just like watch a show, recommend 15 to each other, and then just geek about it, and then have a go at each other when we don't like each other's opinions, and then go kind of watch the next one. And I don't know, I watched Sopranos, and the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, this is cool, this is amazing. And obviously this came out like pre millennium, so 1998, 1999, and for what it did, like, it's still timeless, I'd say. Like, you can watch it today, you can watch it in 30 years, and it will still hold up.
Yeah.
And then when I watched it I think I watched it 3 times. The second time I watched it again, I was like, wow, this is deep. This is a masterpiece. Obviously, I understand things better. I look at it at a different lens. And then when I watched it with my wife and watched it all over again, like, it was just, every pass I watch it, it's like all those things I mentioned before. Like, it just gets better each pass. Like, I haven't watched it for many years now. I definitely want to revisit it, but there's something that's almost like close to like an amazing chord, or like a composition. Like, it's just, everything flows. It's amazing. It's great. And like you said, like I went in thinking, because it's always pitched as like a gangster show, and obviously all action and what have you, which it definitely has that. But the characters like Tony Soprano's mom and all these kind of characters, like his dysfunctional family in more ways than one, and how it kind of grows over the seasons. It's beautiful. It's absolutely cool.
It's funny you mention his mum, because at the time, obviously, I watched it and she was this demon who he finally got rid of. But now I really sympathise with her far more than I ever did in the past. Because obviously you see her with Johnny. He was a piece of shit. She grew up in this very misogynistic world, and you really get the sense that she was still kind of nice to AJ as well. So I kind of, I think she was given a hard draw, really. I think I start to empathize with Livia a lot more, and isn't that crazy? Like, his Tony Soprano's evil mom, and I certainly start to see
that's the beauty of it, because like sometimes you think you get the writer's intention or the creator's intention, and maybe it's like a mixture of things, obviously, what the actor brings to it and all that kind of good stuff as well. And you think like, it's because you always think stereotypically, like, you have to go with the hero, and this is definitely not. There's no hero in this show. There's like, I think it's one of the first anti-hero shows, and I think everything's been anti-hero since. But yeah, like, I agree. Like, at first pass, you think, oh wow, you're giving my guy a hard time, which is the hero of the show, and but then obviously when you look back at it and you look at the dynamics and all that kind of stuff, and I had the same thing with Skylar in Breaking Bad. I thought, why literally let him cook, but then after I've watched that multiple times. I was thinking, no, Walter White is a piece of shit. He's not the hero, and they're trying to tell you this every single episode. But yeah, it's that interesting, like, audience dynamic and how we consume stuff. Like, we kind of think that we should side with the person that's presented to us, and I think that's also a nice way to manipulate the audience as well.
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, while we're on Livia, I mean, I'm not completely. She was ordering hits. I love that bit when she's.
Oh, no, of course, yeah. It's just definitely a fucked up character. Yeah,
I don't know.
Have you seen Sharp Objects?
No, I haven't.
With Amy Adams. So that's also a dynamic where basically, like, like, she's got issues with their mom, same way with Tony Sopranos has, and there's another one where like for some reason they just both feel like, definitely not in terms of the show, but in terms of characters, they feel like kind of like a sequel, or like the spiritual kind of like a mirror of each other, because the parental dynamic that she has with her mom is very similar to what Tony has with obviously his mom, but obviously different worlds, different kind of like scenarios. And I think that was written by the writer / author who did Gone Girl. So that's also very interesting as well. And no character there is also good or nice either. But yeah, I'd highly recommend that, just for that kind of dynamic.
I will check that out. Yeah, 8-episode drama. I will get that on when I'm working. That sounds bang up my street.
What other kind of things, a few questions before we wrap up, I know we're running out of time. What other kind of things recently, I guess, or maybe not so recently, that are like, have inspired you, whether it's just TV shows or anything else?
Well, I don't watch many movies these days. Most of my input is literally YouTube shorts of Sopranos and stuff like that. But I think, what's the last really, really good film I saw? I saw Florida Project late, obviously way later than everyone else, by a guy called Sean Baker. It's just set in the kind of
I think I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it yet.
It's near Disneyland in Florida. This little girl and her mum live in a kind of halfway house, I guess, or a motel. Doesn't sound very interesting, but I thought it was mind blowing. I thought it was a fantastic movie. Tells a small story perfectly well. 9 out of 10. I loved it. I thought it was amazing. Great music. So yeah, Florida Project. I really recommend that. What else have I seen that was good? I actually saw a movie with, of all people, Shia LaBeouf, who's obviously a kind of problematic figure, but it was actually quite a good film called American Honey, which I quite enjoyed. He's this lunatic, probably playing himself, with a girl who runs away from her sort of boring family and just goes on a kind of picaresque adventure across America and ends up meeting this guy. And just again, it doesn't really say or do anything explicit. It's just following her beautifully across this adventure. It reminded me of reading a novel, which I don't have time to do anymore. So that was nice. What else have I seen that really blew my socks off? I still haven't seen Dune 2. I'm a bit annoyed that I haven't seen it yet. Okay. It's one of those things where you put it to one side and you're like, I'm going to save it for a bit of free time. And I still haven't had that time. So don't give me any spoilers.
Okay, no worries. There's a lot of sand.
But it's all happy endings at the end, right?
Yeah, I
guess. Man, I'm really, really not the person to ask for kind of movie.
That's all good. That's all good. I wanted to ask this earlier, and obviously your career and like the kind of things you've worked on. You mentioned earlier about like working with directors and stuff, and that's the dynamic I've always been fascinated by. It feels like a pipe dream I'll ever be able to kind of like do that with directors. So I'd love to hear like your experience with that, and is that something that you enjoy, or what's it like almost?
I absolutely loved it. I've worked with one of my favourites was working with Neil Blomkamp on multiple different projects, which went nowhere. But he's such a great guy to work with. He's so nice and funny. In fact, no, I did a load of stuff on Off the Grid as well, before kind of leaving under a cloud because it was difficult to get money out of the company. But working with him personally, he actually stepped up and paid me himself out of his own pocket. So that's the kind of guy he is. I really, really rate Neil. I think he's a proper good guy. Really knows how to get good designs out of you as a designer. Just fun. Gareth Edwards did a little bit of stuff for him. Again, I'm a huge Gareth Edwards fan. I think Monsters, his movie that he made pretty much by himself, is just wonderful. I really could watch that again and again, and I love Rogue One, so that was a privilege. I think that was stuff that then went on to become The Creator, although when we were working on it, it was to be a remake of a 70s movie. But so that was good. And I just love working up front on this pre-production stuff because it's also rough and nothing's been decided yet, so you can have a bit more of a hand in things. What else? Yeah, I generally just enjoy working with the boss, I guess, on their kind of earlier sketches, kind of bringing their ideas to life. Just the two of you, I find that to be great fun.
Is it because like it's less noise, so to speak? Like it's just literally you get information straight from the source?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Pre-production is much more pure, I find. By the time it's become a major show or a major game, obviously there's a lot more technical constraints, and there's obviously a lot of iterating, and you have to work within all these other competing kind of projects that they're all trying to work together. Yeah, I find that just the simple purity of working with a single other person or a couple of other people just trying to develop their idea is just yeah, I'm not going to say fun, but it's a bit more a bit easier.
Mm-hmm. Do you find like you have to have certain kind of like traits or a skill set when you're working with a director? Obviously, everyone's different, everyone's got different ways of doing things, but do you find like there's certain like things you kind of need?
I actually think I'm letting myself off the hook, because I think working in a big game is much more difficult.
Right.
There are much, to be creating concept art. It's not just about making a pretty picture. You've got to go all the different angles of your character, and you've got to show the materials and call outs, and good concept art is a very difficult thing to make, and I'm not the best at it by any means. I think I almost give myself a kind of easier job by working in pre-production pitches and stuff in that way. I think looking at really, really quality concept art, I'm always blown away by the skill of people working in big studios, working on big movies. I think, wow, just, you can juggle all of this stuff and still get stuff done. Damn. So in a way, it's the opposite of the question.
Oh, awesome. Alex, it's time to wrap up. Sadly, I got a bazillion more questions I could have asked, but I guess we can do that for another one in the future.
Talking, but it's been great fun.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for jumping on.
Thank you, Aaron.
Oh, no, sorry. Before, I was after this, so I apologize. Before we head off, any final words or thoughts from yourself to the listeners?
Trust yourself.
Perfect. Alex, awesome.
Thanks, Aaron. Bye.
A big thanks to Alex for an amazing conversation. Hit the links to see what she's up to and to give her a follow. Then head to learnsquared.com and take our courses to enrich your creative voice. Remember, all of our first lessons are free. I've been your host, Aaron Danda. Till next time.